Everything is a super spreader event. Why only election? We have weathered more difficult storms, and this is one more that we'll have to weather, whether we like it or not. On the other hand, when the Omicron is hitting us, we are already fairly well vaccinated. But my own personal read of it is that it's not going to be as horrible as what we have seen so far. COVID has also taught the importance of health, infection control, and good sanitary practices. We have already weathered probably 3 waves. The second wave was actually a combination of 2 waves in one. So technically speaking, this is the 4th wave. We may just look at it as the 3rd wave, doesn't matter. But we have weathered more difficult storms, and this is one more that we'll have to weather, whether we like it or not. But my own personal read of it is that it's not going to be as horrible as what we have seen so far. Having said that, the numbers are going to be humongous in terms of the number of infections. And since this is the norm worldwide, expecting us to be any different does not make sense. We are almost into the exponential part of the curve, and therefore it's only in short order, very short order, that we will start seeing the peak. How quickly the peak will happen? Probably between Jan 15th and Jan 30th for various parts of the country. And by mid to late February, it will be spent. But having said that, it means it's going to be a 6 to 8 weeks of lot of belt tightening and challenging times, to say the least. Obviously, there are a lot of events around it which are going to be a problem. Even if the numbers are not going to be high, I think managing manpower and healthcare call out is going to be a major issue. These are all issues I don't know how we're going to face. I think how bad it will be that way will become obvious in the next few weeks. So I think it's going to be a combination of demand and supply. And as of right now, I'm still optimistic that we will be able to weather the storm much better than the second wave. And my own read is that it might actually be a little easier than the first wave itself. I don't think that's a fair statement. See, we can only compare apples against apples. We are comparing an apple against an orange. When Delta hit us, we were practically vaccine naive. And we had only had a Wuhan wave before that, which was fairly mild. On the other hand, when the Omicron is hitting us, we are already fairly well vaccinated. And we have also had the benefit of a large Delta wave, which does give us some amount of protection against severe disease. So, unless Omicron had come in at a time that Delta had, you won't know how bad it is. If you look at the Imperial College data that they put out last week, or week before last, 10 days ago, they had estimated that the Omicron, if you compare apples to apples, was about close to severity of Delta in comparable populations. Having said that, ground reality wise, we are not that kind of a population. Therefore, the wave that we expect to see will be much less in terms of severity. But I don't think by itself Omicron is less risky in a vaccine naive, infection naive population. If you look at the graphs that's come through from various countries, once you hit a test positivity rate of 2%, you go forward to nearly 20% in a very short period of time, maybe a week's time. So you are very much into the exponential phase in Mumbai. I'm expecting the peak anytime between the 15th and 20th of this month. I don't think it will be much more different than that. 15th to 20th, I think, is a very reasonable estimation of the peak for Mumbai. See, in a way, I'm happy that the cases are asymptomatic, but it's a little too early, isn't it? Remember, from the onset of illness to the requirement of hospitalization, on average, is about 10 days. Nobody gets admitted in the first 10 days of onset of illness, unless it's a panic admission. So the fact that admissions haven't gone up, I think it's too early for us to celebrate. Yes, it is reassuring, but no, it doesn't mean that there is no problem. Second, if you look at bed utilization, it is creeping up. It is not that bed utilization has been flat. It is creeping up. I'd expect numbers to start rising in the next week or beyond. From maybe 12th of Jan, you'd start seeing numbers starting to increase. But then again, it's not going to be exponential, meaning will it be in lockstep with the rise in cases? The answer is no. The curves will be significantly divergent in the steepness. The admission graph will be a lot less than the case graph, certainly. But given a scale of numbers, given that we are talking about lakhs of people, I think there will be enough numbers to keep hospitals fairly busy. Everything is a super spreader event. Why only election? You know about the cruise ship which is docked somewhere in the western coast. I forget where it is. Who in their right mind decided it is okay to go on a cruise at this time? What about the IMA, Indian Medical Association, holding a meeting in Patna, a physical meeting, and IMA is still sending out invitations saying, let's have physical meetings? Would they in their right mind say it is that acceptable? I don't know. I mean, see, this kind of poor judgment is not limited to any particular group or any particular demographic. I'll just say that stupidity is worldwide, and maybe more attention needs to be paid to public health and safety. Yes, it would be nice for us to avoid this kind of behavior at this point of time. But having said that, see, again, I am not a constitutional expert, so I don't know what the mandates are with regards to the election. But yes, I think having election at this point of time is probably just going to add fuel to the fire. But please keep in mind one point. Whether you have an election or not, whether you have rallies or not, the graph is not going to change all that much. I think it at least sends across the intention to the people that the government is serious, and it also signals to the people that there is a significant concern about this. It may be more symbolic than actually a step which will reduce the progression. But having said that, even symbolism sometimes can be useful, because the general public should feel that the government is trying to tell them that this is a serious issue, right? And maybe something as, see, I really don't want to see another lockdown, because that would be economically very catastrophic. And the people whom it hits are the most vulnerable anyway. That's not nice. But I think this is a kind of a reasonable middle ground where we are telling the people, that, guys, listen, this is serious. We have a major wave coming up. It's not a joke. And you need to understand that you need to be responsible. So I think for symbolism purposes, I think it's a reasonable option. Scientifically, will it make a difference? That's another question. The answer is not much. But for symbolism purposes, I think it's not a bad idea at all. What about a lockdown? The answer is it's too late. Remember, today is the 5th of Jan, and I'm expecting the peak within 2 weeks' time. Okay, somewhere around 2 weeks' time for Mumbai. And remember, any intervention like a lockdown takes more than 2 weeks for it to be effective. So by the time the lockdown kicks in, you're already at the peak or just beyond the peak. Therefore, it doesn't make sense trying to do a lockdown at this point of time. The better thing would be to just weather the storm and get through. So obviously the answer is weather it and get through, but keep your medical infrastructure ready. Now, can the medical infrastructure handle this? You're asking all the right questions, but in the wrong direction. Unfortunately, the problem is not going to be with ventilators, not with high flow nasal cannula, not with oxygen, not with beds. It's going to be with manpower. Right now, healthcare call out is rising at an exponential rate. You should see the number of healthcare workers which have got infected. See, this is why I've been pleading for the last 1 month saying let healthcare workers get the booster dose immediately, because if it can reduce healthcare call out due to COVID, that will be important. Unfortunately, there's been a delay in that, and I'm really, really disappointed with this, because right now the number of healthcare workers getting affected by Omicron is rising very, very fast. So you may have all the infrastructure, all the materials, all the equipment, but if you don't have manpower, what are you going to do? And I think that's going to be a concern. So I can tell you that this has become a problem in the UK and in the US, and it's only a question of time before it happens in India as well. So I think the critical X factor here is going to be manpower availability. How bad it will be remains to be seen, because remember, if a healthcare worker gets infected, they go into quarantine or isolation for a significant period of time, and that's not going to be an easy situation to manage. Manpower management is going to be very tough. See, variants are inevitable in that variants keep popping up all the time. That's not at all unusual. And it's the natural order of things, especially with a virus which is so aggressively replicating like coronavirus. So that's not unusual. So not every variant is going to tear us a new one. And remember, even if you do detect a variant, it does not mean that we are in trouble immediately. For example, we detected Delta sometime in October or September of 2020, but then we got into trouble in March of 21. So, for 6 months it was in hibernation, and then suddenly, in our mind at least, it suddenly woke up and tore us a new one kind of. So just because we find a variant does not necessarily mean it's a problem. It's just a variant. Now, obviously, there are certain characteristics to this which seem interesting. I think we need more information on that. Obviously, I take everything with a pinch of salt. Remember, it's the same group which reported incredible results with hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine or whatever it is. So I think I would like to see more data, more follow-up, and more evaluation being done before I say anything about it. At this point, it is an interesting variant. At this point, it is something that requires more study, more data gathering. At this point, there is no reason to panic. I think our challenge is still going to remain Omicron, at least till the end of the month. Will this become a problem? I think maybe in the next 7 to 10 days, we will have more information for us to kind of model what is likely to happen. COVID has taught us a lot of good things. While everybody is bellyaching about their personal difficulty with COVID, COVID has also taught the importance of health infection control and good sanitary practices. The concept of hand washing, and it's been part of our Indian tradition for umpteens decades and millennia. And suddenly it's come back to us saying, oh my God, this is so important, we should do this. So in a way, I'm happy that we are now more aware of, this physical distancing. We never had this concept of personal space. So I think some good things have come out of it. The problem is that with the majority of the world remaining relatively under-vaccinated, it's going to be very difficult to get rid of COVID because there's going to be transmission. See, for example, if you look at this variant that you're talking about from France, it actually has been reported from a group of people who came from Cameroon. And remember, that's what I think is going to be the challenge. All these variants which are now coming up are now, most of it is going to come up from African countries where the vaccination rates are abysmal. And it's a problem, isn't it? Because it's a political hot potato. If you share vaccines with less developed countries, because that's the right thing to do, you get a lot of flack. If you don't share it, it will keep coming back like a Sputnik and kicking your vaccine. That's why WHO keeps saying that this obscenity has to end. People should stop giving more and more doses, and we should be aiming to get 2 doses into everybody as quickly as possible. And that's the problem. As long as we are not willing to live as a global community and we are unable to see beyond our own village or neck of the woods, I think we just need to learn to accept that we'll have to live with COVID. I'm sorry to be very blunt about it, but I must say that I'm a little disappointed with the way we have reacted to the COVID pandemic, in that we have not seen the broader canvas. And I'll tell you, that's the difference between SARS-CoV-1 and SARS-CoV-2. SARS-CoV-1, we didn't have a vaccine, but all countries worked together in a systematic manner and eradicated the problem. SARS-CoV-2, it's been hamstrung by very haphazard and very individualistic responses. And as long as that continues, I'm sorry, I don't see a end to the problem in sight. And I suspect we are now getting close to a situation where SARS-CoV-2 will become an endemic problem, although at a much smaller scale, something like a yearly flu kind of a problem. But again, the last word is yet to be said.